My name is Isabella Moreno, and I used to believe in two things: love and fairness. That was before both betrayed me on the same night. Dear viewers, welcome to our channel. Subscribe to receive more stories every day. It was supposed to be a surprise. I had flown in early from my medical internship in Sao Paulo to see Damien, my boyfriend of 5 years. I had baked his favorite almond cake, packed my overnight bag with that blue dress he loved, and even planned to tell him the news in person. I got the full-ride scholarship to Johns Hopkins. We had talked about this moment 1,000 times. He said he'd move to the States with me, said he didn't care where we lived as long as we were together. But as I opened the door to his apartment, the scent hit me first. Not the lavender-scented candle I had gifted him, but a sharp perfume I'd never worn. Her laugh was next, like careless, coming from the kitchen, my kitchen. And then I saw them, her on the counter, legs around his waist, his hands under her blouse, his lips on her neck. The cake slipped from my fingers. Shattered porcelain, shattered illusions. He didn't even look ashamed. I walked out that night. I didn't scream. I didn't ask why. I didn't beg. I boarded my flight the next morning with swollen eyes and a chest so tight I thought I might code right there at gate 19B. I never saw him again. Not until tonight. 12 years later. Emergency room, Sao Paulo. Dr. Moreno, trauma coming in. Male mid-30s. Severe cardiac arrhythmia post-MVA. GSW in the thoracic cavity. Code red. The words snapped through the intercom as the ER erupted into organized chaos. I tossed my clipboard on the desk and ran toward the trauma bay, snapping on gloves. It wasn't until the gurney rolled in and I saw his face that the air left my lungs. Damien Costa. His hair was shorter now, temples flecked with gray. A jagged scar ran across his chin, and his body, still lean, was marred with bruises and blood. But I'd know those eyes anywhere. For one brief moment the room blurred. The beeping monitors, shouting nurses, clattering wheels. All of it faded. "Doctor," one of the interns asked, "do you know the patient?" Blink. "Doesn't matter. We treat him like any other. Get me vitals, EKG, and prep for emergency thoracotomy. He's crashing." I leaned in. "Damien, can you hear me? Damien." He groaned, eyes fluttering open just long enough to say one word. I say, "Bella." And then he flatlined. Back in those days, her name was Juliana Cortez. She was tall, model thin, with a penchant for red lipstick and expensive handbags. She was everything I wasn't: bold, loud, attention-seeking. She and I had attended the same undergrad program. We weren't friends, not really, but we shared classes. She flirted with Damien once, and I thought nothing of it. Clearly that was a mistake. What I didn't expect was to see her now. After we stabilized Damien and moved him to the ICU, I stepped out for air. I needed 5 minutes to think, maybe cry. I hadn't seen that man in over a decade, and suddenly, I was the one holding his life in my hands. That's when I heard her heels. Blick, blick, blick. Turned, and there she was. Juliana. Older, yes, but still impossibly poised. This time no smug smile. Her mascara was smudged, and her fingers trembled. "Dr. Moreno?" she asked, voice cracking. I said nothing. She stared at me for a beat, then whispered, "They told me you're the surgeon on call. Please, please save him." I should have walked away. I should have said no. But I didn't. The surgery was brutal. Damien had 3 cracked ribs, a bullet near his pericardium, and his heart had stopped twice. I worked through sweat, silence, and memories I had buried long ago. "He's stable," I told the ICU team 6 hours later. "But not out of the woods. We'll monitor him overnight." As I left the room, my phone buzzed. A message from my sister. "Did you know he's the CEO of Cortez Biopharma now? They're calling it an assassination attempt." I stared at the message. CEO. Assassination. What the hell had Damien gotten himself into? Juliana was waiting in the family room, shoulders hunched, eyes hollow. She stood as I entered. He made it? She asked, hopeful. For now. She nodded, biting her lip. I crossed my arms. Why me, Juliana? You knew I was on call. She hesitated. I didn't know until they wheeled him in. When I heard your name, I prayed you'd still take the case. Why would I? After what you did to me. She looked down. Because he still talks about you. My heart stopped. He what? She took a shaky breath. Isabella, I didn't know he was with you. Swear. He told me he was single. We were seeing each other, but he never said anything about a relationship. When I found out, it was too late. You were gone. And you still married him. He begged me. Said he'd never stop loving you, but you were gone, and he didn't know how to fix it. I backed away, pulse racing. Was it possible Damien hadn't betrayed me intentionally? Was it possible I never knew the whole truth? Hours passed. I couldn't sleep. I found myself outside Damien's room, watching his chest rise and fall beneath the monitors. Then he stirred. Isabella, he whispered. I stepped in. You're alive. He smiled faintly. You saved me. Again. I frowned. Again. He coughed, wincing. 12 years ago. You saved me then too. I didn't deserve it. You're right. You didn't. He reached for my hand, but I didn't move. I never cheated on you. Not knowingly. Juliana lied. Told me she was your friend. Said you were seeing someone else in med school. She manipulated everything. I stared at him. You're saying you didn't cheat. I'm saying I was stupid, but not unfaithful. The room was still, save for the slow, steady beep of the heart monitor beside Damien's bed. I need you to tell me everything, I said, crossing my arms tightly over my chest. No half-truths, no vague apologies. I want the entire story. Damien's eyes met mine, and for once he looked small. Not the charming, confident man I had once loved. Not the high-powered CEO the news articles described. Just a man broken by bullets, by lies, by time. He swallowed. After you left that night, I tried to call you. Dozens of times. Emailed. I even flew to the States once. But you changed everything, your number, your email. You were gone, Isabella. I didn't respond. I had erased him from my life on purpose. She told me you were seeing someone else. That you were cheating on me first. I winced. She showed me fake messages. Photos. I believed her. He paused, shame flickering across his face. I believed her because I was scared of how deeply I loved you. Because it was easier to believe you'd left me first. I looked away, heart pounding with a familiar ache. And then what? You married her. She got pregnant, he said softly. My head snapped around. What? She told me it was mine. I was devastated, confused, ashamed. So I did what I thought was right. I stayed. I took a step back. And was it yours? He gave me a long, tortured look. No. I leaned against the cold wall of the ICU hallway, trying to process it all. She lied. About everything. But by the time I found out, I was already legally bound to her and her family. I stared at him in disbelief. Why didn't you leave her? He laughed bitterly. Because by then, Juliana's father had made me so of Cortez Biopharma. Her family owned half the company. If I left, I'd lose everything. And not just money. I'd lose access to the research I had been working on for years. Research I started because of you. Me. He nodded. Remember your idea during undergrad about antiviral vectors for post-surgical healing? I took it to the lab, refined it. It became a multi-million-dollar development pipeline. And blink. That was just a term paper. You were always the visionary. I just followed your light. For a moment, I didn't know whether to cry or scream. I confronted Juliana the next day. I asked her to step into the private consultation room. You lied, I said plainly. She looked at me like a cornered animal. I didn't have a choice. You always have a choice. You chose to manipulate both of us. You faked messages. You faked a pregnancy. I needed him to marry me. My father was going to cut me off if I didn't secure an alliance with someone influential in biotech. Damien was perfect. Smart, respected, and just naive enough to believe me. I stared at her, stunned at her coldness. But why let me believe he betrayed me? Yes. She looked up almost defiantly. Because you were his weakness. If I couldn't erase you, I had to turn you into the villain. I took a deep breath. Then why come to me now, begging me to save him? Her eyes shimmered. Because despite everything I still love him. And because he asked for you. 2 days later, Damien was stable enough to be moved to a private recovery suite. I visited him every evening after rounds. We talked, awkward at first, then slowly falling into the rhythm we used to share. He asked about my life, my medical career, my failed engagement, my parents. I avoided asking about his. But one night after everyone had left, he said something that chilled me. I don't think the shooting was random. I frowned. You think it was targeted? He nodded. I've made enemies, Isabella. You don't run a billion-dollar drug company without stepping on some toes. But this felt personal. You were shot in a parking garage. Exactly. No robbery. No car stolen. Just 2 bullets and a masked man who vanished. My skin prickled. I think someone wants me out of the picture, he added. And I think it has to do with Project K. Project K. He looked around, then lowered his voice. It's a top-secret formula, based off your vector design. It can regrow damaged cardiac tissue after infarction. I stared. That's impossible. Not anymore. And the prototype? It's ready for clinical trials. But someone doesn't want it to reach the market. Why not? He held my gaze. Because it would put every major cardiac drug manufacturer out of business. Later that night, as I walked to the hospital parking lot, I felt it. Someone watching me. I turned sharply, but the corridor was empty. Still, the sensation crawled across my skin like static. When I reached my car, the passenger side window had a small crack. Not shattered, not broken, just tap, like a warning. I looked around, heart hammering, then drove straight to the hospital administrator. Put Damien under protective observation, I said, and assign security to the West Wing. The administrator raised a brow. Do you suspect foul play? I suspect this isn't over. That night, I sat in the dark hospital chapel. I thought about the girl I used to be, the one who believed in dreams and loyalty and surprise visits. And I realized something. That girl had died the moment she saw Damien with Juliana. But in her place, a surgeon had been born. One who didn't flinch in the face of blood. One who didn't run when the past came crashing back. I wasn't that broken woman anymore. But I also wasn't done asking questions. The next morning, I walked into Damien's room with a firm expression. I need access to your research files. Everything on Project K. He looked confused. Why? Because I think this isn't about you, I said. I think it's about something or someone you don't suspect. He frowned. Like who? And just as I opened my mouth to answer, a nurse burst in. Dr. Moreno, come quickly. It's Juliana. She's collapsed in the lobby. Juliana lay motionless on the ER stretcher. Her designer heels discarded and makeup streaked down her cheeks. Nurse, I said as I stepped closer. What happened? Witnesses said she fainted. Looked like a panic attack. But then she started convulsing. I knelt beside her, checked her vitals. Sky-high heart rate, shallow breaths, skin cold and clammy. Tachyarrhythmia, I muttered. Page cardiology. And run tox screens now. As I called out orders, Juliana's eyes fluttered open. She gripped my wrist weakly and whispered a single desperate phrase. It wasn't meant for him. Froze. What? She was fading fast, but her lips kept moving. I leaned in. They were after me. I sat outside her ICU room, reeling. All this time we thought Damien was the target. But Juliana's words shifted everything. If she was the real mark, Then someone inside her world, their world, was playing a much deeper game. And the key to unlocking it. Project K. I pulled the patient visitor log, made a few discreet calls, and traced who had accessed Damien's floor since the incident. One name popped up twice. Eduardo Cortez, Juliana's brother. Eduardo had always kept a low profile. Head of legal affairs for Cortez Biopharma, rarely seen in public, no scandals. But something felt off. When I returned to Damien's room, he was already sitting up, scrolling through his tablet with a furrowed brow. "I think we've been wrong," I said, stepping in. He glanced at me. "I just pulled the visitor logs," I explained. "Eduardo visited both you and Juliana in the last 48 hours. And get this. He was in the hospital the night you were shot." Damien blinked. "Why would he? He wants the company. Patents. Project K." Damien shook his head. "No, Eduardo would never." I interrupted. "He filed a provisional patent in his name yesterday, using your lab's data." Silence. And then it clicked. "Juliana always said he hated me," Damien whispered. "Said I was never good enough to marry into their family. And now," I said, "he's making his move. Juliana was the obstacle. You were just collateral." We didn't wait. We went straight to the company. Damien walked through the front doors of Cortez Biopharma like a ghost rising from the grave. Security buzzed, phones lit up, and within minutes, Eduardo stormed into the boardroom. "Damien," he said, startled. "You're alive." Damien finished. "Yeah, thanks to Isabella." Eduardo smiled stiffly. "We were all worried." "Save it," I said coldly. "We know about the patent. And the shooting." His eyes narrowed. "You're just a surgeon. Stay in your lane." Damien stepped forward. "You tried to steal my work. My life. You poisoned your own sister." "She wasn't supposed to die," Eduardo snapped, before realizing what he'd just admitted. Silence. Then security stepped in. And Eduardo didn't resist. The story broke in the press days later. CEO survives attempted corporate coup by brother-in-law. Heartbreak, lies, and $1 billion patent. The real story behind Project K. Juliana remained in stable condition but was transferred to a private psychiatric facility for long-term care. Her confession helped indict Eduardo. And Damien. He returned to his position. But something had changed. So had I. We had both seen the worst in each other's absence. And now we stood face to face with a choice neither of us expected. Try again. Or close the door forever. It was 2 months later when I got the call. Damien wanted to meet. No hospital, no business. Just coffee. We sat by the lake. Quiet, watching the ducks glide through the still water. "I don't know what I expected," I said. "Neither do I." He reached into his jacket and slid a small envelope across the table. "What's this?" "A grant proposal. In your name. Full funding to open a cardiac innovation lab. Your lab. Under your vision." I stared at it. "Why?" He smiled. "Because everything that saved me started with you." I watched him walk away that evening, uncertain if our paths would ever fully cross again. But in my chest something softened. Not because he needed me, but because, for once, I had chosen myself. Dear viewers, thank you for watching. If you like this story, please subscribe to our channel to receive more stories every day. Share with us what you think of this story and tell us where you're watching from.